Daniel Durning. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel really grateful. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Second day in a row.
Yeah.
We tried to record this yesterday and something weird happened. iCloud storage. It's unclear, but we're going to do it again today. We're going to do it better.
We're only going to get better from here.
We're only going to get better. Exactly. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast. I'm honored that you said yes to being on the podcast. You're one of my favorite humans on earth. So I'm just grateful
Bibs.
that
Thanks,
you're
Biba.
here. So why don't we tell our listeners how we know each other? So we initially met through work. We were both working for a startup. I was working there first, and then Dan went and applied for a job. I remember actually looking, like I was somewhat involved in the recruiting process, and hired you but hadn't met you on your first day, and I was immediately like, this human is next level. I was like, back then I was not the dating type. I think I was like going on dates to try and like seem like I was, you know, the dating type, but I was thinking I would probably just be a single person, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when I met you, immediately after meeting you, I was like, if I did ever decide to venture into the world of dating or like having a boyfriend or a partner, you would be the ultimate goal. Not like somebody that I would actually ever be able to date, because you seemed so next level, but like the person you would always wish you could be with. That was my very chill first impression. I remember I told my friend about it. So the fact that we're now dating is just...
It's wild.
It's wild. And so fun. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Do you want to share maybe how we started really bonding? Not romantically, but when our friendship really became like more of a friendship, not just a work acquaintance.
Yeah. So yeah, we were friends. You were the first meeting I had on my first day of working in startups, which was really cool. I always remember that. I think it's very special. But yeah, fast forward like 11 months into that job working at the startup, had a meeting one day where like 30 of us were on a call, and the founder was just like, yeah, sorry everyone, we don't have money to keep you on anymore, and so you're all effectively laid off, and sorry, but that's just how it goes. And quickly learned like not only what it feels like to get laid off, I had never gone through that experience before, but what it's like sometimes to work at startups or like early stage tech companies. They don't always become billion-dollar things, and they sometimes, run out of money, which is something that's necessary, I've discovered. But it was a really beautiful experience, like very grateful, even though, it was unfortunate we got laid off. It was really like the next stepping stone in my life and my career, to go not only find somewhere new to work, but really to like step back and look at the connections and friendships I had at this company. And Bibs and I were both living in Chicago. And that day that we got laid off, I would say like really kicked off our friendship. We were both, distraught that, oh my goodness, we both just got laid off. We were both actually playing on the same volleyball team at North Ave Beach. And so that night we ended up hanging out, playing volleyball together. And from there, I think for like several days over the next couple of weeks, we just would go do yoga with all the free time we had. And so we would go to various points around Lake Michigan and just do yoga together. And it was a lot of fun. It was great to have someone else who was going through the same sort of trauma of getting laid off and losing, a job. But also, more importantly, like just fun to spend time with you. And I think we bonded a lot over our shared experience and our love for just being active and sort of doing stuff in the sunshine.
Totally. Yeah, that was a sucky experience, but being able to go through it together definitely made it as good as a shitty situation could have been. Very grateful that we stayed connected. that we're now dating, we're now roomies, and now you're on the podcast. I'm very excited to talk to you about who you are and what you're doing here. So why don't we just start there? Why don't you introduce yourself, tell the listeners in a few sentences who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, my name is Daniel James Durning.
Thank you for the middle name.
I am a human being. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. I'm from Massachusetts. I am a Scorpio, and I'm a person who loves learning. I think that's my favorite thing to do on Earth. Followed closely by helping people. And I'm a person who doesn't have it all figured out, but is actively working on themselves and constantly in this process of Kaizen, Japanese word for continuous improvement. I think that's like my life philosophy, is to just sort of embrace life, get a little bit better every day, but recognizing that I'm never going to be perfect. And that it's always a constant iteration upon myself in my experience. Very passionate about the world in general, but specifically public policy, issues of injustice, tech, sort of combining all of those things to try to create a better world. Also a huge fan of nature, and whether that's oceans, lakes, mountains, I love it all. Love being in the sunshine. And I like good people like yourself. I'm a very deep individual, and I feel like I really love how deeply we can connect on life. So yeah, that's a little bit of who I am.
Love it. Completely agree. As a Pisces and fellow water sign, I also consider myself to be mainly a deep feeler, but deep person. So love connecting with you about all the deep.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into all of this. So why don't we back it up a bit? So when I worked at my last company, we had a very specific method for interviewing folks. I was like often involved in the recruiting process. So I want to ask you a couple of questions from that interview format. They were always my favorite questions because they're podcast-like questions.
Yeah.
And you had made the suggestion that we talk a little bit about like childhood background kind of thing. So yeah. I'm stealing those questions and now using them in an actual podcast, which feels fun. First question is, during your early years, so childhood age, pre-college, pre-high school even, who would you say were the biggest influences in your life during that time?
Yeah. I would definitely say my family. My mom and dad are just like two of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. They have so much love and compassion for me and my brother and everyone in our family, but also just human beings in general. They really set amazing examples for my brother and I to look up to. And we were all very close. We still are very close to this day. So I would say my family. I would say lots of my friends, and like even my brother. I looked up to him. He's 2 years older than me. Always felt like he kind of charted a cool course, and then I was able to like kind of follow in his footsteps with my own spin on things. Definitely makes it easier as the younger sibling. Every teacher, my brother is a really talented individual, and everyone who ever met me was like, oh my goodness, you're Rob's little brother. Which I think was a good thing in the sense that they were like, wow, this kid's probably pretty cool too. But it also set like really high standards for my own, achievements and stuff. So, yeah, I would say my family was probably my biggest influences and the people I spent the most amount of time with.
So sweet. I have met your family, and they are incredible. Yeah. Just the best of the best. Yeah. I'm so excited we get to hang out with them soon.
Me too.
So again, during those early years, what would you say you personally were known for back then?
I was probably known most for sports, I think. I think sports was like, when you're a kid, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to play in every major sports league. I was just very obsessed. So I was constantly like practicing sports, playing sports. If there was a book report to write, I would write it about sports. If there was a art thing I had to paint or draw, it would be about sports too.
What about outside, like personality wise? What kind of sports person were you?
My personality was, I was very emotional. I found I was like a very sensitive individual. I felt things very deeply, whether it was myself on the receiving end of something that would make me emotional, or if I saw other people experiencing something, it would trigger a response within me, an emotional response. So like in example, like sports games would be playing really well and happy and excited, confident when things were going great in the game. But if something bad happened in the game, I remember like waves of emotions coming over me, feeling like I wanted to cry, feeling like something was unfair, or just generally feeling like insecure or scared. So it was like a constant effort to kind of control that aspect of myself within the arena of sports. And in the 90s, I mean, it was still very like, there's no crying in baseball, there's no crying in sports. So yeah, just kind of coping with the standards I knew people had for how to act and who I was and what I was feeling naturally.
Yeah, because it's funny. Everything you just described, I think, are perfectly natural emotions. If something feels unfair, it feels unfair. If you're sad, you're sad. If you want to cry, you want to cry. I think emotions, not bad. But the challenging part comes when you're a child.
Yeah.
Like, how do you even teach that? Like, it's possible that people, it's very possible that I was taught all the things that I know now, but it's hard to understand as a kid, like, that you don't need to be insecure, how to be secure, how to not lash out when something that feels unjust happens to you. And what makes it more challenging is being in that sports environment that you were talking about, where there's no crying in baseball. You're not having people, you likely don't have people around you being like, it's okay, Dan, do you need to have a cry? You know what I mean? What was it like? It was like you probably had to hide your emotions, right? Or totally. Like just channel it as anger or something.
Yeah, really just like stop immediately
yeah.
doing whatever this emotional reaction is. Almost feeling like I made a mistake by having emotions.
Wow.
So like, you know, that was like not an appropriate response, those types of things. But I look back and it's really just, you know, I think more a function of not having tools or like mechanisms to express myself and to process things, to be radically honest with folks, you know, those types of solutions that, you know, we should develop alongside emotional capacity that we have.
Love all the emotion talk.
Yeah.
I think it's really powerful. So thank you for sharing that stuff about your early years.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, so then you went to high school, you went to college, and what did you go to school for? What was your job? What did you do when you graduated college?
Yeah, so I went to college, studied social sciences. I was a criminal justice major with minors in sociology and law and public policy. I was on a pre-law track. I thought, you know, I want to be a lawyer. I think I came to that conclusion after meeting some lawyers growing up and just saying like, oh, wow, like people seem to really like when you're a young person and you say like, oh, I'm pre-law. I've talked to other folks and they're like, oh yeah, like I just told my parents I was pre-med, or like, you know, doing something that every like society has deemed that's a good path. Like you're on the right path. You figured out your life. And it's crazy that we ask kids like 18, 19, 20, you know, that age group to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you barely even understood the world.
Agreed.
So yeah, really thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Throughout college, went to Northeastern University, shout out Huskies, but the co-op program, which is like bigger internship type thing, I think was really helpful because I ended up working a lot of jobs related to law. My first job, my freshman year of college that summer, worked at the district attorney's office in my home city, and really like opened my eyes up to what the criminal justice system does. So it's more than like a Law and Order episode. It's not a TV show. And I basically just witnessed, Judge Judy. I basically just witnessed like what the function of the criminal justice system is. And I was on the DA's side, so like prosecution side of all these cases. I really was just a fly on the wall. Every day I would go to court, I would watch court, watch cases go, watch sentencings. And I realized then like I'd never want to be a person who gets other people in trouble. I really didn't like that concept of like I'm going to irreparably ruin someone's life by my participation in this system.
Damn.
So yeah, I in that experience was like, oh, well, defense attorneys do the opposite of that. They try to keep people from getting in trouble. They hold the state and sort of powers that be accountable. So I was like, okay, well, I'll look into being on the defense side of things. That ended up leading me to go to big law firms, white collar corporate law firms that, basically represent business transactions and businesses themselves, but really powerful ones. And I thought for a while, like, oh, this is the life. Go work on the other side, make more money, help people. Help is used very uniquely there because, you could argue that defending some of these organizations isn't a good thing either, but that also exposed me to like how law works and big law works and how the business landscape of America works and, what role lawyers play in that. And through those experiences, realized like, oh, I don't actually want to be a lawyer at all. I don't want to work at a law firm. I don't want to be an associate. Don't want to be a partner. And within a year of graduating undergrad and starting my first full-time job, I applied to grad school for public policy.
Wow.
And in my head, I was like, public policy will help me get the skills and the perspective and framework to be able to help people outside of being a lawyer.
Damn, that's amazing that you...
Thanks.
Because I think so many people, especially if you go to college, and I imagine like it's just a huge investment in the States, at least you're putting a ton of money in. If you have support, that like there's so much like riding on that. And I completely agree that it's absurd that we ask children to decide what they want to do with their entire lives that young. But I think a lot of people do go to college, get a degree, and realize that what they studied isn't what they actually want to do or feel good about doing their whole life. And sadly, I think a lot of people, either due to necessity or because they think that's the only way, don't go back to school or don't pivot or don't find another job. So I think that's huge that you were... Was that a hard decision, or were you just like, oh, don't like this, doesn't feel right, gonna go back to school? Like that, I think that's actually a massive decision, and you're making it sound like NBD, but...
It definitely was hard to navigate because I didn't quit the law firm life.
Yeah.
When I went to grad school, I was sort of masochistic in the sense that I was like, oh, like I'll just do my full-time job and then also go to school at night.
When you realized, oh, I don't want to do this as like my career, was it just you looking at people further along in the career path you were on thinking, okay, I don't want to be them? Or were you actively also not enjoying your work?
Good question. I would say like I did enjoy the work until I didn't. And I don't remember the exact day when I stopped enjoying the work, but I know that, I went to one big law firm, eventually went to another one. And at that second one, I really had a moment of like, I looked around the room and just was not inspired by anyone I was with. In fact, I was like kind of cringing at the toxicity that supposed leaders were allowing their organizations to have and function with, and saying, that this just doesn't sit with me at all. Like, I don't think this is what leadership looks like. I don't think this is what good work or interesting work looks like. So yeah.
Can you talk about what you mean by like toxicity? Like, I don't know anything about law firms or big law or really I haven't had many like corporate jobs either. So what are the standards there? Like, what is viewed as good leadership, or what makes a person a good worker that didn't sit right with you?
Yeah. Law firms are like a lot, I think, of corporate America, where it's very high stakes. There's a whole level of prestige that is required to even get interviews at those places. They're very exclusionary in the sense that if you didn't go to certain colleges and get certain grades, we're not even going to entertain hiring someone. Never really a fan of that whole concept. But once you're there, it's a bunch of other folks who are a lot like you. And, in terms of like toxic things I witnessed there, an expectation that you never, ever make mistakes. Mistakes are punishable in the sense that, you lose your reputation, will fire you at any moment. So really high risk, high reward. In terms of like poor leadership that I saw was pitting employees against each other, pitting employees against management. We talk a lot, I think, now post-pandemic, or, within this pandemic, of like reassessing the relationship to work. There was always an underlying norm of your work is your life. You are here as long as we need you every day. And you must perform really high. You must be capable of self-sacrifice. Basically have no boundaries whatsoever. And yeah, I witnessed bullying and, people just getting really treated poorly on a day-to-day basis.
Wow.
And trying to, self-preserve myself and navigate around those things while also being like, this is wrong. And I don't necessarily love this work in the culture that it breeds.
That's so sad. I'm like acting appalled because I think because it is appalling, and I guess I consider myself lucky to have never been in that world. But I also recognize that you are describing, I think, corporate America in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like that, sadly, I imagine is common.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm acting like, oh my God, I can't believe you went through that, because I can't. And at the same time, it's normal here.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is.
So I see why you left or decided to leave, which is cool that you played the long game. You weren't like, oh, well, I quit, I'm out. But you did that alongside going to school. You go to school for public policy. Then what? You fall in love with public policy and you are working in public policy now? Or what did you learn there?
Yeah. Good question. So in grad school, studying public policy, realized, I think, about midway through my degree that like government isn't necessarily the solution to everything. And I say that it's a very loaded statement. But what I'm saying is that I don't think the government is interested always in solving problems. I find that very frustrating. I know lots of folks in this world are on the receiving end of that. We don't have good, nice things because we just don't really care. There are too many interests on the other side saying, no, we want to preserve the status quo. And I think that's very dangerous. We've seen that play out countless times in our lifetime. So yeah, really almost became disillusioned by this concept of like, oh, I'll go work for a campaign, or I'll run for office, or I'll go work for the government. And recognizing like we're actually not going to move the ball forward at all. And that's really disheartening as someone who's passionate about helping people and wanting to make a difference in the world. And being joined, like grad school is amazing for the sense that you build this network and cohort of folks who are also super passionate about the world and want to see change and be a part of it. So I became like disillusioned. I was like, big corporate life is toxic. It's going to burn me out. Working for the government will be a never-ending game of not achieving. And that led me to discover or think about like what organizations are actually changing the world right now that aren't big corporations and they're not the government. And that's where I landed on startups and tech companies in general.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
This is amazing, I think. Again, you keep talking about it, I imagine, because it's your story and your life, as if it's like no big deal. But what was it like when you realized everything you just described about public policy, the government? Because I imagine it happened when you were in grad school, like kind
Yeah.
of it's too late. You're not going to just, you weren't like a one class in, like, just kidding, I'm not going to get my degree.
Yeah.
Again, you made the decision to stay committed to your original intention behind going to grad school, which was I really actually like the common thread I see so far is like you actually want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very noble of you and bold of you to have stayed with that commitment of like, oh, I realized this public policy government thing isn't what I thought, so I'm going to pivot to the startup world, which I'm excited to talk about. But what was that actually like? Were you like, I just invested a bunch of money? Was there any, like, going back to emotions, what was that like? Or were you just like, oh, I'm going to make the most of it? You know, like, it didn't affect you that much.
It's a good question. I don't think, like, the money factor was ever really like, oh, like, I regretted investing in education. I always felt really good about investing in my own education and my own self-development.
Even if you weren't like
Even
had
if
the
it- yeah,
same
exactly.
title as your
Yep.
degree or something.
Yeah. Like, I really am a big believer that, like, we should stop having tracks for folks, quote unquote tracks of like, hey, you study this, then you study this, then you work this. I believe that it's like the best professionals I've worked with come from a variety of backgrounds, and they invested in themselves. They learned what they learned because that's what they were interested in. But it opens up a lot of new connections and opportunities to apply skills in new ways. Overall, though, I mean, it was very disheartening, like almost as disheartening as realizing, like, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. Oh, this thing I'm studying and going to get a degree in isn't necessarily going to be what equates to happiness. And I really think there's a ton of value as someone who's gone through multiple iterations of themselves or evolutions to discuss, like, learn so you can discover what exactly you want to do. Not that you're on a track, but I think what's really helpful about taking jobs or studying new things is that you quickly learn, is that, like, do I actually even enjoy this? Or is this the dream I had? And being okay with the fact that it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of value comes not from liking a job, but from disliking a job. Saying, oh, I like parts of that, some parts I don't. And that you don't have to embrace all of it as being, okay, well, I made a choice once, and therefore I have to live my life like that. I think if we're being really self-aware and in the present with what we're working on and studying, it helps us sort of formulate a very unique path for ourselves.
I love that. I think that's new. Like, I'm suddenly feeling sad for the people that in this generation, but also particularly like older generations that either never had that option or like didn't allow themselves to carve out that their own unique path or ask themselves what that might look like, because it's literally, I think, a new concept to actually advocate for yourself in that way. So it's really powerful that you did that for yourself. At the time you're in grad school, you're still in this law job that you know you don't want to be in forever and is like this toxic work environment, it sounds like. How were you coping? Like, how were you caring for yourself? What were you spending your time doing outside of work?
Yeah, I would say wasn't really coping with anything. At that time, like, I think I had a very, like, standard approach to life, in the sense that, like, my social engagement outside of work was really fueled by alcohol and, like, fueled by
sounds like a sponsorship.
this concept that, like, if you work hard, you play hard. And I mean, the amount of times I heard that said to me by leaders or things like that, I thought it was very normal to drink every night or drink several times a week, or every single social gathering I went to involved alcohol. Would go out with classmates after class, we all get drinks. We go out as a company with colleagues after work, we get a drink. Weekend comes, it's time for me and my friends, and we all drink. And so I think drinking was like a massive part, and I think it's a huge part of just corporate culture in general. It's a huge part of American culture in general.
Totally.
But kind of word is like this badge of honor of like, oh, I can drink and I can achieve a lot. And like, I'm living the American dream. I'm the guy who works hard and plays hard. And I didn't really have a lot of skills to deal with feelings or just emotions. I didn't have any productive, healthy coping mechanisms. So I think a lot of it went into alcohol to like numb myself or to feel a different way. And thus feel better about my life. The worst part about alcohol, though, is that like it feels good for a moment. A couple hours, you feel buzzed or happy, or those feelings of releasing the negativity. But then hangovers come into play, and so like I think that was a huge part as I got into my mid to late 20s, realizing that like, oh my goodness, my body is like straight up not enjoying this ride at all. And like just hangovers that take 24 to 48 to 72 hours, feeling like I'm going to throw up when I wake up, or getting so drunk that you forget things happen, or don't really feel in control. And around that time I was like 27 years old, really 4 years out of college and working this grind of school and work. I really just like sat with the sadness that like alcohol is not the solution. Unfortunately, I wish it was. I wish there was this way to be able to do all these things at once, but realized like I cannot afford financially, mentally, physically, emotionally to pour the remaining time of my life into drinking and partying. And yeah, it was really sad. It was like, oh my gosh, this career path that I chose is not bringing me happiness. That's sad. Oh my gosh, this thing I'm studying in graduate school isn't the key to all my problems. Therefore, that's sad. And my like favorite hobby outside of work is also really not helping me at all. So almost feeling kind of like conned, like I got gypped or scammed to believing this American dream that like, hey, as long as you got a career that you like and you're good at, you can party. All these norms just came crashing down on me. So I really had to step back and like mourn the loss of myself that had believed all these things, and kind of just start questioning what exactly I should be doing in life, and reprioritizing work as not like a thing I do to make money, but a thing I do to learn and develop as a human being. Free time, how do I spend it? Who do I spend it with? What activities help me? Then just personally, like, what do I want to get out of life in general? I think that's a really critical question. I wanted to have an experience where I developed and evolved over time, and that I could witness former selves of myself die and rise from the ashes as new, better versions of myself. And yeah, all of that led me to like really questioning, why am I drinking? Can I stop drinking? Can I be social? Can I live in a major city and have a social life that doesn't involve alcohol? But yeah, it eventually led me to like stopping drinking and learning a ton of coping mechanisms and tools in my toolbox. And yeah, that was it.
Wow. When were you like, okay, this is bad, like I'm actually gonna stop?
Yeah. So it was like 2017. I had moved to Chicago towards the end of 2014. So it was like 3 years in living here. Decided I'd take 2 months off, or take a week off, really. It started with a week. This is like summer 2017. And I like was at a point where I was like, can I actually just go a week without drinking? And did that. Felt good, so I just kept going. I'd add another week on. Got to like 2 full months, no drinking. And then I ended up going back to drinking because I was like, oh, look, I just conquered this thing. Like, I'm good. Like, I know I can take 2 months off at any time. Ended up drinking then again for like another on and off, 2 to 3 months until we got to December 2017. And almost like not wanting to accept the fact that like, hey, alcohol can't be part of this plan for me personally. Yeah. Certain people can drink and have fun and be fine. But for me, it was a negative, and so I had to wrap my head around the fact that this is not going to yield benefits, um, which is sad. It's like losing a friend almost, and feeling silly and embarrassed that like, oh, I thought that was the key, and which is just, it's unfortunate, but it led me to eventually, like, surrounded by friends and family one night at a party night, just like saying that's my last drink and I'm good. And everyone in my family and friend group drinks to this day, most of them. And it wasn't this big like intervention or anything like that. It was more just me saying, I did it for 2 months, I can do it again, and I'm going to try to go a week, a day. And as I went through that, like, it's really intense, emotionally, like not only like losing this outlet, but having to confront the fact that like I have to now build real self-confidence. I have to learn how to talk to people when I'm sober and they're maybe drinking.
And you're also, exactly, you're still in the environment of other people drinking. It's not like you're,
Totally.
okay, now I'm just going to hang out with sober people.
Right.
You're still working at the law firm in corporate America where,
Yeah.
that's an uphill battle.
Totally. And yeah, if you're someone with anxiety, alcohol helps that a lot. It makes us, or for me, it made me feel less anxious, made me feel more confident, funnier, sillier, smarter, all these things. That's how advertising gets to you when it comes to alcohol. Hey, have this thing, you'll be a hot person who other hot people like. That's literally most ads. It's disgusting.
So true.
And the concept of like, you deserve this. You deserve that beer or that wine. I found that all to be bullshit as I was going through the experience. I was like, no, it doesn't. Like, doesn't help at all. And so, yeah, it really became this like process of now relearning how to socialize sober. What do I do when I feel sad? Happy, mad, sad. I had to really go through those uncomfortable times. And if anyone's trying to stop drinking, it does get easier. It gets better. Probably took me 4 to 5 months of not drinking before I felt like just a brand new human being.
Wow.
Capable of going to social events without drinking, capable of, when I feel things, I can do other things. I have a toolkit. I have skills. Resources I found really helpful. Stop Drinking Reddit, r/stop drinking. It's a support group in your pocket. Amazing resource. Just other people sharing their experience. And in reading that, there's people who are 30, 40 years older than me realizing I need to stop drinking now. I've been doing this for 50 years of my life, and, some serious carnage is occurring as a result. I didn't really ever use like AA or, other like therapy or things like that, but I am very close with my family, and, I told them, hey, I'm going to stop doing this and hope that you can support me on it. And them being like the amazing human beings they are, they're like, of course, like, we're here for you. We want to help you be the best version of you. So yeah, really, I think it's absolutely necessary to have a support network when you're making massive life changes like that, whether it's a friend or your family or even just a support group online. There's so many good resources out there. There's no one way to get sober.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's important for folks to know that there are options out there. And, I guess I'm a little non-traditional in the sense that, like, I didn't have like a rock bottom moment that you hear about a lot. And I certainly feel a lot of empathy for folks who do have that epic moment of like, things are really tough right now, and like, this is really rock bottom. But I eventually just sort of said, if I don't want to have a rock bottom, I have to stay sober. And that was enough motivation for me to continue on the path and continue working through it. And now I'm 4.5 years sober, and
Damn.
I've now worked in tech and startups for 4 years. Wow. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I always say, like, I'm not going to drink again until I have $1 million, or at least that's what I said when I first stopped drinking. But I think eventually I'm never going to go back. Like there's no benefit to me. I have done a lot of cost benefit analysis. If you work in risk, this is part of your job. And I just don't see any value in drinking alcohol, health-wise, mentally, emotionally, goals-wise. It doesn't help me.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I feel the same way. First of all, that's incredible. I give you so much credit for doing all of that, quitting the drinking in the environment that you were in, going through the other losses that you were going through. It's amazing. And it's so cool to just, hear more about like the details of that part of your life. And I feel the same way with my relationship with alcohol. First of all, you've helped me with my relationship with alcohol, because when I met you, was not drinking. I was just drinking kind of sporadically, nothing crazy. I never had a rock bottom moment either, but I knew alcohol was not good for me. Like I very distinctly remember drinking one night by myself in my apartment years ago, and I was just like, I knew I love this in a sick kind of way.
Totally.
Like I want to love only this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was not good, and was also sad to realize like this can't be my love. But it was powerful. I'm glad that I had that self-awareness to recognize, if I keep doing this, I will hit a rock bottom.
Yeah.
Because I can sense this voracious, what's the word I'm looking for? Like this like insatiable desire for this thing. So, I didn't mean to turn this into like a sobriety podcast, but if there is anybody out there that is looking to quit or like reassess their relationship with alcohol, absolutely encourage you to do that.
Yeah. Check
out the resources that you mentioned. If you do happen to be looking for resources, Laura McCowan, The Luckiest Club, are great online resources. There are so many people out there and so many support groups out there, but even just following some of those accounts is so helpful. And obviously having like an accountability buddy almost, or just somebody that you're in it with, is really helpful as well. So I'm very grateful to you for helping to inspire me to just actually stop drinking, at least for now. Melissa Urban talks a lot about the approach of when people ask if she's drinking, she just says, I'm not drinking right now. Yeah. And I really like that for me, because mentally it's like there's not this pressure to never drink for the rest of my life. It's kind of what you were saying, like, can I not drink for this very moment or this day or this week or whatever? And days and days over time can add up to a lifetime or a large part of your life, and that's really significant. So I think it's so cool. I'm so grateful that you don't drink. We say all the time that we're grateful we don't drink and have found other ways to have fun that don't knock you out for a day or two afterwards. Also, don't want to knock alcohol entirely. No. Neither of us are advocating that everybody on the planet stops drinking. We want everyone to do what's best for them. But I think the large majority of messaging out there is what you're saying. If you want to be hot, if you want to be successful, if you want to feel good, drink. And so
no other industry can market to you the way alcohol does and not be called a scam. Products that are like, hey, we'll change your life. Take this pill. That's kind of what alcohol is telling you, is like your life is going to be way better than when you're not consuming our product. Don't be a wuss.
Right.
Get hammered with us,
Yes, come poison yourself with us.
And it's also like, I think like alcohol, like again, like exposing like lies or just like norms that we are all taught to believe. Alcohol kills more people than every other drug combined each year.
Wow.
We don't talk about that. We talk about, we have really bad other drug problems in our society. We do. And we have a problem with alcohol in our society. It's all a spectrum. And we constantly tell ourselves that like, hey, it's not a problem. As long as you're able to show up to work tomorrow, you're good, And I think like myself included, but a lot of folks, like we fall into part of the spectrum where we're like, I don't think I have a drinking problem, but I am drinking quite often. I do feel better when I'm drunk. I do not like being hungover, but I feel like it's a byproduct of wanting to engage with alcohol. And so like just being conscious that there are other options out there and that you don't have to keep following that path if you don't feel it's helping you.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. I really do feel like we could do like an entire sobriety alcohol episode, because are like more questions I want to ask you. But for the sake of time, fast forwarding to today, tell us what you do today and how you feel about it.
Yeah. So today I'm a product manager at a tech company, and what was beautiful, going back to the story of us getting laid off, is that, about a month later, different startup in Chicago was hiring folks. One of my friends from grad school worked there, and he said, hey, send me your resume. I'll talk to some folks here. Found this company, and they had the opposite trajectory of the first startup I went to. The first startup I went to laid us all off eventually. This one did so well that they actually got acquired by an even bigger tech company, which was an amazing sort of achievement. And so the exit to being acquired by a bigger tech company led to more opportunities for success. Very grateful to work with people who saw my potential and were able to give me big opportunities to grow and learn. And yeah, I'm a product manager now. I manage a payments product and fascinating world of transacting funds between people, how to grow customers with a good payments product. Really enjoy the product space. I think it's a very natural arena for me to thrive in, as someone who's always sort of been in leadership positions on teams, but servant leadership and really listening to your people. The other half of product is discovery and learning. It's really asking questions like, why is this happening? And having to then solve for it. I love being a product manager. Love just being able to solve problems every day. It's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of thinking creatively. It's a ton of emotional intelligence. I would say that's the most critical skill I get to practice every day, and that feels really good. And at the end of the day, it's fun as heck to get to own decisions and actually make impacts on a product that millions of people use every single day. So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
It's so cool. It does sound like a very good match for your skill set. It very much sounds like you have, quote unquote, made it. And I'm not saying that you haven't in a lot of ways, but part of the reason I wanted to start this podcast is because even the people who have seemingly made it have challenges.
Yeah.
And so tell me about the challenges.
Yeah.
What are the harder aspects of either your role or even just working now?
Yeah, I mean, really good question. Definitely want to be very clear. I don't have it all figured out, and I'm constantly still going through this process of is this what I want? How does this benefit me? What can I contribute? How can I grow? The really hard parts are that it's kind of foreign. I'm a first year PM, so I'm still learning a lot of fundamentals and skills. And so I found a tremendous amount of value by forming strong connections with people who are way smarter than I am, that are very technically inclined. Ask them questions, grow, learn together. Other challenges I face, figuring out is this what I want to do for the next 5 years, or is it for a couple years? Before I joined this startup, I was actually working on my own tech company idea. I'd written a white paper, a business plan, taken it to an incubator, gotten good feedback, interest, and then I was well, I need to make some money right now, and I need a job, and this seems like a great opportunity to learn. So yeah, eventually knowing my end goal is to build my own thing where I set my own rules, I set my own hours, I build a product that does a specific thing that I'm interested in. So yeah, I think that's what I struggle with most, is being able to keep the long term in perspective of, this is helping me on my path, but it's not the end of my path, and it's not making it. It's just another stepping stone that's going to help me develop more and eventually, hopefully, lead me to where I want to be.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's cool that now that you've been through these iterations of, oh, I'm going to become a lawyer, or, oh, I'm going to study public policy. This is what's going to, be the thing or solve it, or how I'm going to help solve the problems of the world. It's cool that now you've shifted your approach entirely and acknowledged that what you're doing now, which is a really good and I think in a lot of ways fulfilling thing, you recognize that even that is not not the end of the road, not the arrival. It's a continuous process of growth and
totally
moving in a direction that hopefully constantly feels a little bit better for you, even though where you are at now feels good, I think, mostly, which is good and what we want. I think that's very, very cool. So we talked about how when you were working at the law firm, self-care wasn't exactly there, maybe beyond using alcohol to help you feel better. So you're not drinking now. Now, how do you care for yourself? Like, what are have you developed or like acquired some more tools in your tool belt for taking care of yourself and also having fun, which I feel like is part of self-care?
Yeah, 100%. Like, couldn't stay sober without skills and like tools. And I see them kind of as both. So like, number one thing, being able to breathe. Just taking time to breathe. Shout out Wim Hof breathing method.
When you say breathe, you don't mean like just breathe. You mean like you do serious breathing exercises.
Serious breathing exercises. That was a godsend.
So wait, what's it called for people? If you're interested, it's very powerful.
Wim, W-I-M, Hof, H-O-F. He's is he Dutch?
He's the Iceman?
Iceman.
I actually don't know anything beyond that.
But yeah, it's a series of breathing exercises you can do that really just have chemical effects on the body, very similar to how alcohol or drugs impact our body on a chemical level. What I love so much about it is that it grounds me in my body and reminds me like I am capable. And yeah, I absolutely love it. That's my like go-to. If I have 5 minutes, I'm feeling anxious, 5 minutes, it's all it takes really to do one round of breathing. It's loving to ourselves to breathe and make sure that we're getting full oxygen.
That's very powerful. I definitely like hold my breath when I'm anxious, which only makes my body panic more. So very powerful. So Wim Hof, what else do you do?
Big fan of cold water. This is part of the Wim Hof method. Cold showers, go into a cold lake, go into a cold ocean, take that plunge. What I really like is that it shuts off my brain from everything else that matters. It means when I go into cold water, this is the only thing I'm doing right now, and this is the only thing I can do. So it's like it clears my head very effectively to get cold. I start laughing maniacally. I really just have such joy in the pain of being cold. And I think like we do our best to like limit the amount of uncomfortability we find in our lives. I find that diving into the uncomfort or the discomfort is really where a lot of power comes from, reminding ourselves that I'm capable of walking in Chicago 0-degree weather, -30 with a wind chill. I can do that in shorts and a t-shirt if I want to. I can jump into Lake Michigan in February and it's 40 degrees and be okay. So like cold water, breathing, two number ones.
Cold water is also awesome, just have to say. It's weird to be like, do you want to go be in some pain in really cold water together right now? But it's so fun. Like it
really is.
And I can definitely attest to the anxiety piece where like I run very high on the anxiety scale and you just simply cannot feel anxious after a cold plunge. It like just freezes it off of you. It doesn't mean that the anxiety is not going to come back eventually, but it's a really beautiful way to reset. I love that you do that and have also helped me foster my love for that too.
Yeah.
And
grateful that you joined me. Other things I really like doing, meditation, critical. I'm a huge walker. I started doing walks like probably around 2017 when I wanted to start getting sober. I just had all this free time and energy. It helps you fall asleep, but it more than anything is like a meditation for me. I'll go 10, 12, 15 miles and just love it. I love being on an adventure. It's really a great way, I think, to just release lots of emotions and feelings, as well as like meditate on positive things. And I just love that aspect of it. I love walking. Other things, hydration. I drink so much water, It's ridiculous.
freaky.
Especially like someone who liked alcohol at some point. Water is just, it's the best. Like there's nothing that compares to a nice glass or water bottle full of water.
Gets you drunk like nothing else.
Yeah.
It's really just like basic needs.
Yeah, it's like how I think like we should probably like help children. Like
yeah. Here's how you can take care of the body that you're in for the rest of your life.
And yeah, like for me, a big part of health and wellness is it's got to be free. It can't be, I cannot afford to go to classes. I'm not asking for permission from anyone to indulge in self-care. And so making it so easy and free and accessible that I can just do it whenever, that is so powerful to me.
I love that all of your things are super accessible and don't cost anything. And they bring you joy. And that's really beautiful. I feel like there's other stuff you do for fun too. Like you talked about learning. You learn about everything under the sun. And speaking of free, where do you usually learn your stuff?
Yeah, YouTube. It's just an
It's
incredible resource. Yeah, I really like learning. Constantly trying to learn. It's one of my flow states. Like I just feel so good when I'm learning about something that I don't know a lot about, or even if I do know a lot about it. Hearing other people talk about it, other perspectives, super like helpful to be able to digest all that information, make my own informed decisions and opinions on things. Love the feeling of starting something new and having to be bad at it. I think that's a super humbling mechanism in my life where I can't get too cocky because I actually am not very good at X thing. Super grounding. What I love about it is that each time I do it, I get a little bit stronger. And again, it's like Kaizen, a little bit better every single day. I'm never going to be perfect, but I can always be growing a little bit.
I love that. I also think when it comes to fun, something I think you're so good at and you've really brought out in me too, is being so silly.
Yeah.
You're like, this has been a pretty like serious conversation, not overly serious, but you're one of the like funniest, silliest people.
Thank you.
That I know. And you've made me weirder
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah, like I think we lose that ability to be silly. And it makes sense. Like our society as like a norm is like, you be professional. You be, and it's not to say like, hey, go around and be ridiculous and like obnoxious. It's being like happy. I always think it's like stand up but improv plus just being like a child. Yeah, that's a huge outlet and like a lot of fun too to like navigate the world as a sober person. And this started probably a year into my journey of like not drinking. But when I go out with people who are drinking, like I get the same energy that they're feeling, which is like, yeah, like the world is awesome. Let's ride this. And it's like I'm drinking a soda water and lime and I'm right there with them. Yeah, let's go. Like, and so like really like just being around human beings like that gives us that quote unquote drunk feeling. But I'm completely sober and I just really love being silly and funny and like not taking anything too seriously. I think that's a really critical part of just maintaining mental health.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to think. We've been going for a while now, so we should probably wrap up. If money were no object, what would you do?
If money were no object, would love to like not have a job. I think my ultimate goal is to not work at all and have all of my financial needs taken care of. So if money was not an object, I would say I'd probably just hike all the time, go to the beach all the time, just spend as much time in nature as I possibly could, as much time with family and friends as I possibly could, sleep as much as I want, just live my life sober, normal, doing the things I really get a lot of satisfaction and joy from.
Yeah, like take even better care of yourself, basically.
Totally. And yeah, like traveling, I would do that very regularly. And I'm honestly trying to do that with my like whole life plan of the next couple of years is like, I want to live in several different places throughout a year, whether it's on the East Coast with my family and friends, whether it's in Chicago, whether it's somewhere warm I want to be able to bounce between places and optimize it as much as possible to avoid winter, pretty much.
Yeah.
But to really just go and see as much as I possibly can on this earth. It's a massive place, and we only have so much time here.
It is pretty massive.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of reconcile the current reality with what you would ideally like to do, knowing that this sounds like pessimistic, but knowing that that will never happen, in the sense that money is never not going to matter, probably, barring something really crazy. So it sounds like at least part of your process is building in elements of what you want your ultimate, utopia, heavenly existence to be like.
Yep.
Is there anything else, or anything like mentally? I feel like I struggle mentally, and I guess this might just be like my Pisces rose-colored glasses, my desire for us to truly all live in a perfect heavenly bubble where we all love each other and have no problems and don't need money and just take care of each other. And I think I'm personally just like experiencing a new level of grieving, knowing that that's never going to happen, at least in this reality, in this lifetime. So maybe more mentally, how do you cope mentally in this oftentimes brutal world
that
we're living
It's a good question. Again, learning through this, not an expert at it, but I think it really helps to keep everything in some, like, it's like, I gotta have a job, but is it something I'm enjoying? Is it something I'm getting value from every day? Okay, I can feel a little bit better about my job. Outside of my job, what am I spending my time doing? Am I setting myself up for the ultimate goal that I'm working on? So it's all like keeping it in the sum perspective of, this is all going to have to occur at the same time, but I can make little improvements, little progress on each of these goals every single day, and being okay with that, recognizing that, like, hey, it's not going to be perfect tomorrow, it's not going to be perfect a year from now, but over 5 years, I could be 5% closer to where I want to be. So I think I really just get a lot of joy from that process of life, and having to assess where I'm at, where I want to go, and how do all these pieces fit together, and how can I make sure I feel good about all of it. And if I don't feel good, that's the alarm bell to, hey, we got to change parts of this. And whether that's work or outside of work, being so in touch with the plan and the goal and the process that it's very natural to change and evolve through it as I need to.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. I think I'm in very much of a feeling stage. Like, I'm grieving. I'm in like the anger stage where I'm like, everything's unfair, and people out there, like, I'm the privileged one, and I'm feeling frustrated. Like, this is so unfair, for even take me out of it. Like, the people that are not privileged, that are marginalized, or whatever, like, I'm a ball of feelings. And what I'm hearing from you is, like, you sound like somebody you've processed through the current reality in such a way that you now have a very high level of awareness of the systems that we're living in, of reality, of the limitations, of the frustrations, and you have a high level of ownership over the elements that you can control. And that's very refreshing to hear, and inspiring for myself to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Why don't we wrap up? How can people find you? Is there any way we can support you?
Yeah. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't really log in there quite often. So you can find me. I just may not be there. Daniel.creative on Instagram if you like cityscapes, skylines, nature. That's mainly what I post there. Find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Durning. When I eventually launch my own company, I'll be sure to come back and do an episode and tell you more about that. But catch me in Chicago, on the East Coast, sometimes the West Coast. Yeah, I'm always here to help folks and support folks. We're all going through this together, and I always just want to be a lighthouse for others, and recognize that I have so much to learn from others as well. So, just find me out there.
You're the sweetest.
Oh, thanks, Bibs.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course.
I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing more of your story with us, more about who you are and what you're doing here. And I hope you'll come back.
Thank you. I would love that.
Someday soon.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I feel like we should go outside.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Let's see if this recorded. Thank you for listening to Who Are You and What Are You Doing Here? We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you enjoyed the podcast and you haven't already, please be sure to like and review the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to ask questions or give feedback to us directly, please visit bibs.live/contact and reach out to us there. We'd love to hear your feedback. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast or channel depending on where you're listening, and we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.